Hi guys, it's David here from Right On Resources, and today we're going to have a look at the first 4 novels for the Will Trent series by Karin Slaughter. So this will be a spoiler-free review and a bit of a reading log as I go through the first 4 novels of the series. As you can probably tell there from the background, this is going to be a crime thriller series, which is something that I'm really happy about and really excited to get into as well. So Karin Slaughter, for those of you that don't know, she was born the 6th of January 1971. She's one of the highest regarded crime writers of our time. She's published 18 novels and still carrying on, and sold more than 35 million copies of her book. She's also been the winner of the Edgar Award for Best Short Stories. Going back into her early days, Karin was someone who was quite sickly as a child, and that resulted in her spending a lot of time indoors. Now, maybe that is something that actually worked well for her and helped her develop as a writer. Certainly, that has helped for a lot of writers over the years. People like Robert Louis Stevenson as well was famously very ill, and that's what helped him to become a writer as well. So moving on, then we're going to have a look at some of the key characters. So you can really break it down to 4 key characters. There are other characters that come in, such as the forensic experts or Will's actual boss, but these kind of dip in and out so far in the novels. So the main kind of stays are Will Trent. Now this is the central character, or the protagonist if you like. He's an agent of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, often referred to as the GBI. So this is like a high level rank within the police, often dealing with a lot of investigations that are happening internally. So he deals with things like misconduct and any kind of investigation that can't be dealt with by the local authorities. When they need to bring in the big guns, generally, Will is the person that arrives on scene. Faith Mitchell is Will's partner. She is a single mother. She is someone with a lot of experience as a police officer, and she often helps to just guide Will throughout a lot of his investigations. Even in the 4th book, when she's actually having a baby, she's still on call and generally helps him with the research for each investigation. Now we've got Angie Pawlowski. Will's on again, off again romantic interest. Now this is a really interesting character. She's kind of an anti-hero, you might say. She's someone who treats Will in a very, very derogatory way, but it's someone who we can't help but like. She is someone with a lot of strength to her character. She's very independent. She comes in and out of Will's life as and when she pleases, but often she leaves him in a worse state than when she left him. And then we have Dr. Sarah Linton. So a very nice, very likable character. She's a widow of a police officer who often helps out on cases with the GBI. We can see there at the end of the 4th book that there might be some indication of a romantic interest there with Will. Now these characters all feature prominently in all of the books, some of them more than others. For example, Dr. Sarah Linton only really comes into it with the 4th book and the 3rd book, and I think she'll kind of drift in and out with the rest of the series. Will Trent is quite an interesting character, and whenever you're looking at a crime novel, we've got to make sure that the writer is avoiding any normal cliches. The common one is that they have relationship problems because they're so engaged with their job. This is the case, but it's generally linked back to Will's troublesome childhood. Now, Will grew up in a foster home. He was never adopted, and he's suffered many injuries and scars through his time at different locations within his childhood. His mother was murdered, and she has placed him in a garbage bin in order to save his life. So I think you'd have to make up your mind yourself whether you think that's a bit cliche or whether you think it's endearing. Personally, I like the fact that he's gone through this trial and tribulation, and it is something that does have an impact on a lot of his investigations further on. He's a very interesting character, and he's one that is easily relatable to most people. So far, I've read 4 of the books for the Will Trent series, and I have to say I've been pleasantly surprised by what I've read. Each one of these books is unique in its own right and have a fast-paced and engaging style. One of the key things that a lot of writers struggle with is being consistent. A lot of the time their first book, the one that gets them published and the one that gets them that notoriety, is normally really fantastic because they've really had to work for it, and oftentimes their quality can lax a little bit. However, with these books, it's good to see that the quality has not only been maintained, but I'd say they're even getting even better as we go along. The one book that I've struggled with so far was Genesis, and the only real reason I struggled with this one is because the topic was a little bit too gruesome for myself. Now, a lot of Karin Slaughter's novels talk about a lot of different ranges of different crimes, a lot of which are ones that are quite frequent in the media or have happened within history. Genesis has a big theme on rape, torture, and both mental and physical abuse. Some of the things that the villain in the novel does is truly sickening and disgusting. It's that kind of thing where you watch it, you can't tear your eyes away, but you kind of wish that you could. It's a very gripping novel. It's also a very dark one, and that also is very dark for the central character, Will Trent, as he has to confront certain elements of his own past. I think all of these are very, very good, very interesting novels, and they all seem a little bit different. It's really good to see that they're not rehashing the same ideas, but each one seems to be offering a fresh new take or a fresh different insight into the characters that we know and love so far. Okay, so now we're going to look at a few things that I had a few issues with regarding this actual novel. So there's two main issues that I had, and these come down to simply Will's relationships with women and the fact that he has dyslexia or learning difficulties. So if we start with the first one with women, it seems to be that every single woman he has in his relationship seems to be able to have this kind of controlling, dominant power over him. And that's not something that I found particularly interesting or engaging. His boss, for example, is a woman. She often uses the fact that he has dyslexia as something to kind of undermine him and poke fun at. It's never something that's directly addressed, but every now and again, whenever they have situations where they might be in a disagreement, she'll say, "You tell me, have a look at the evidence, try and read this for me." And she knows full well that he can't. So it's little kind of barbs and jibes like that that didn't really sit well with me personally. The other things with the women is his relationship with Angie. Now this is something I have a love-hate relationship with. He is almost like a drug addict with his addiction to this woman. It's someone that he desperately craves and wants to be around, but he also accepts that that is going to cause him more harm than good. It's someone that jumps into his life and jumps out, and often leaves him in a worse state than when she found him. She's someone who has got a really bad reputation amongst the police precincts for sleeping around, but she's also quite strong. She, just like Will, has came from a very difficult upbringing, was also in care herself, and this has greatly affected her adult life. She's also a police officer, or at least she is in a few of the novels, and that can sometimes add to the story and make it a little bit more interesting. Now, Will is afflicted with dyslexia. Now, this can be a disability that is only marginal. It could be something that has a dramatic effect on someone. For Will, it seems to have quite a big effect. He struggles to read. He struggles to follow basic things like signs and to read a map. Although this is something that could make him seem a bit more relatable to people, although it makes him seem a bit more endearing, the fact that he carries on, that he's reached quite a high position despite this disability, often actually speaks in his favour. However, when I got to the fourth book, I found that this was just getting a little bit old. It's something that's brought up time and time again in the fourth book, and it is something that actually makes Will seem quite pathetic in some circumstances. Now, I say that as someone who has dyslexia myself, so I try to think about ways to get around it, and certainly Will does as well. But it seemed like there was a lot of times where he was being criticised and almost put on the spot because of his disability. The final criticism I have to say with this is that how the novels come to an end. Like, as all crime novels really do, it generally comes to the falling action where they'll find out who the culprit is of the crime and things will get solved many times. So in the fourth book, for example, we find out who the bad guy is, not because of necessarily great detective work, but because it is literally stumbled on by one of the characters and found out by chance, essentially. This is something that I found a little bit of a letdown. It's very clear that the writer has a really good understanding of police procedures, of forensics and things like that. She's clearly done a lot of research, but this just seemed a little bit sloppy for me. I'd like to see an actual logical um, route of deduction that they're following, and sometimes that just seems like they're stumbling on the answers, which again might be another reference to the idea that Will is being created as someone who isn't necessarily the smartest person around. So what is my verdict so far? The books are definitely worth a read. Slaughter shows a real commitment to the development of her characters that evolve as the novels progress. This is something that you really want to see as a reader. You want to get to know these characters, you want to actually feel that connection with them, and it's good to see them develop as the novels progress. It's really good to kind of get that in-depth understanding and almost a friendship with some of the characters as we read on. The crimes that are actually detailed in the novels are quite shocking and sometimes disturbing in nature, but it helps the reader understand the reality of crime within America. Even though this is a fiction novel, a lot of the crimes that Karin is talking about are things that have happened in the past, and they really help to bring a light just the kind of darkness that can be associated with the human nature. Um, in contrast to that, you have characters like Will, you have characters like Faith, who quite literally show that mankind is good and capable of helping others that are in need. In terms of this crime series, I'd definitely say give it a read. There are some elements of it that I struggled with initially. If, for example, you're a bit squeamish with certain topics, don't agree with you, then maybe think about looking at different ones. As we've seen from the start there, Slaughter has done many of these books. There's quite a few in the collection. You should really read them in order. Again, the order will be detailed there when on the previous slide. However, she does take the time to make sure that a little bit of backstory is interwoven into every single one of the novels. So if you are into crime, if you're looking for a new writer, definitely give Karin Slaughter a go. And the Will Trent series is absolutely fantastic so far. If you like this review, then please make sure that you like and subscribe. If you've got any comments or anything like that, please feel free to leave them below. Thank you.